What's up, guys? How's it going? Just another YouTube video. I got some juice. Drinking natural juice. Healthy as shit. But anyway, I am going to conclude this year's movies of 2017. And these are going to be my favorite movies. If I ever do another video about this year's movies, it would be maybe two of them. Maybe honorable mentions, and I'll talk about why I really like these movies, but just didn't resonate me. These are the movies I'm gonna explain to you, kind of briefly, about why these movies kind of resonated me, or just why I liked them, and why they're on my top 10. And then I might even do, I don't know, maybe worse years list. I might even even in the worst list, I might even say that I like these movies, but they're still pretty bad. So, all right, only 10 of them. And well, we'll see how it goes. Reading down from number 10 to 1. Number 10 is The Shape of Water, Guillermo del Toro's romantic fantasy drama about a mute woman who falls in love with a sea man creature who's being held captive in a underground facility. Now, why I really like this film, or why I felt the film resonated with me, is that it's a unusual romance film where you have two people, or someone who feels like who doesn't fit in into society, and then you have a monster, of course, that's not going to fit in with society, and they have a romantic relationship. Sign language, that the main character, I forgot what the lady's name, she's able to communicate with she's deaf, or she no, she's mute. Yeah, she's mute. So she communicates with sign language, and it's interesting that she's able to communicate with this creature, and the creature is able to understand the lady, and eventually they have a romantic relationship. And then once she figures out that she really loves this creature, she tries to break it out. I don't remember if they had a name for the thing. I think they just called it, I don't know, just some man creature or something. I don't remember. I just saw the movie this past week, and I think it resonated me on a, I guess, romantic level. And I would probably say it's probably one of my favorite romance films, and probably Guillermo del Toro's best movie from what I've seen from his work. Uh, Counting down from number 9. Oh, by the way, I felt like after seeing this movie, I feel like he may be able to pull off a Bioshock film. I don't know, just the style how the film was shot. He might be able to pull off a Bioshock live action film. Even that other guy they were considering, Gore Vanisky, the director who did the first three Pirates of the Caribbean films. But anyway, I'm losing track. Number 9 is probably my favorite action film of the year. It's Free Fire. Now, if you haven't heard of this movie, this is a very small budgeted action film that's contained in one room. If you're familiar with Quentin Tarantino's work, which this is not his film, this is directed by Ben Wheatley, or Wesley, whatever his name is. This is a film about a arms deal that goes wrong, and there's a big old shootout that happens for the duration of the film. It takes about maybe like 20 minutes to build up, but then when the action kind of kicks in, the action scenes in this film is so entertaining. I mean, I can't remember an action movie that I was entertained by the action while also kind of invested what kind of like goes on into the whole film. Uh, Probably not since I've seen Guillermo del Toro's 2013 film Pacific Rim, which I like that action. I like the action scenes in that film. But this film actually it really had a rough start for the first I think 20 minutes before whatever I just said earlier. I thought it was kind of clunky a bit, and I thought some of the excuses for them to start shooting each other, I thought it was weak, and I thought it could have built up more suspense to actually dwell into the actually dive right into the action scenes. And I really didn't really like how the most of the movie was kind of like handheld. They could have done without that, but I felt like that film as an action movie resonated me more than all the other action movies that came out. Even John Wick, surprisingly. John Wick was good. That's gonna be on my honorable mention. Number 8 is Your Name, the anime film. Beautiful, beautiful animation. I love the story. It's probably one of my also probably hit one of my favorite list of romance films. And if I ever have a long list of romance films, I'll give it out. What I really liked about Your Name was that I couldn't really figure out where it was gonna go. I mean, it was unpredictable per se, and it kind of kept you guessing why these two characters were switching bodies, and then the more they start learning about each other's lives, they start to kind of grow fond of each other, and then romance kind of starts to occur. And then there's another kind of plot that kind of comes in where a meteor comes in, and then actually it was not really like another plot, but it was well kind of they kind of hinted earlier in the story, and then kind of how it kind of goes along. It kind of uh well what I'm trying to say, it kind of comes into like an adventure kind of like movie. If When that meteor sequence kind of comes in, it's kind of like it's kind of like the Lake House. If you've seen the Lake House with Sandra Bullock and Keanu Reeves, it's kind of like that where where they two people, they love each other, but they're set like years apart. But even though they switch bodies, they learn about each other years apart. I think maybe like 3 years apart. That was my number 8. Highly recommended. Beautiful animation scene in theaters. I mean, my jaw dropped. Number 7, Dunkirk. Now I don't know if this is Christopher Nolan's best film, but it's one of his. It's one of his, but it's not the best film that everybody is talking about. It is his shortest. What I really liked the film is that it was a film built on tension, which there was no room for character development. Kind of like how Free Fire was playing now, where it just puts you right in the middle of the action. This one puts you more closer, right when the film starts in the action, and there's barely any dialogue in the film. That's what intrigued me the most, where there's barely any dialogue in the film, and the film was able to tell an emotional story. These soldiers trying to survive on in World War II. At the end of World War II, when they're trying to evacuate from Germany. I wish the movie was rated R. When you see body parts or just people just blowing up, they just fly up in the air, and I don't know. I'm just thinking about something like from a cartoon. Even Christopher Nolan focuses, or his approach on film is more of a realistic approach. When somebody blows up, you expect the body parts just be everywhere. But when you blow up, I don't know, you're just gone up in the air, and I guess you don't come back down. That's just me. There's just one part in the movie where I was just seeing all these people kind of just being blown up in the air, and they just go whoop whoop whoop. You don't see them again. You don't even see the body parts or nothing. You don't see them again. They just blow up in the air. They're gone. But I really like the movie though. It's my number seven. My number six, which is my favorite horror film of the year, The Killing of a Sacred Deer. It's about a boy who taunts a surgeon and his family for the death of his father. The boy's dad, died on the surgeon's operating table, and the movie kind of doesn't really go in detail in their backstory, but the movie is very. It's not cliche. It's not a cliche horror film, and the movie kind of questions whether or not what's really going on while the movie is playing now. And I feel like if I go into it more, I feel like it's going to be a big spoiler. And I really don't want to, if you haven't seen the movie, I would recommend you checking it out. The Killing of a Sacred Deer. It may not, this movie may not please mainstream audiences. It's not that kind of a horror film. It's a slow burn, metaphorical, artsy horror thriller, and it's one of the best horror films I've seen in a long time. I highly recommend checking it out, but then I also recommend that you have the patience to to actually try to resonate with the film. You need patience to actually watch this film, otherwise you might not click all the way. All right, I'm losing some time here. Number five is Split. If you haven't seen the ending of Split, then you know what. The movie came out in January. You should already know what's the surprise. They're already going to make a sequel to it called Glass. That should be a that should have gave it away. That should have gave it away. But for those who haven't seen it, check it out. And then if you haven't, see this other film, research it, see this other film that they're referring to, made 17 years earlier. The Last Jedi, number four. I'm glad the film shot down all those theories. What could have happened in the next film, and it completely went the opposite direction. Because I feel like you're gonna anticipate it. Fandom's expectations of a certain media, they're high. I'm glad this film kind of shot all that down and kind of went other ways with it. And if you're not familiar with Rian Johnson's work, then yeah, you're not gonna like this film because he goes in certain directions where you don't necessarily expect. He did it with his film Looper, which I really enjoyed, which I didn't like at first, but then when I kept watching it and started appreciating it, I really love that film now. I kind of I really like this Star Wars movie. I think the controversy on it is going a little too far, just because people's theories of what could have happened were shot down. But I think I think this Star Wars film might be better than The Force Awakens. Number three is Logan. The only issues I had with Logan was that certain parts of were CGI. I thought they could have used practical effects. Maybe it was on. Maybe they did what they had to do with the budget that they were given, which is smaller. But I felt like there were certain parts that occurred in the film they could have done without CGI. Most specifically, this car chase scene. And then I felt I wasn't really emotionally impacted that I wish I was with the film's conclusion. Number two is Wind River. I have no complaints about that film except I wish the movie wasn't handheld. But I love the grittiness. I love how dark the film was, but I also love what I really like about that film is the performances from Jeremy Renner and Elizabeth Olsen. And then I'm just going to say my last film, Blade Runner 2049. I had no problems with the film whatsoever. None.